Manchester City. We're it's this is the weirdest summer for Manchester City fans, and I think Manchester City haters in general. No Pep Guardiola,
That's the
no
main
Bernardo
thing.
Silva,
Yeah.
and it's sounding like this is right. We're a week away, so Rodri might already be at Barcelona, but it's sounding like Rodri's going to be at Barcelona. Three spearheads of a project are now no longer there, and you fill that role with Enzo Maresca. So, what's your initial expectations of the club in the Premier League with all of the turnover?
I think the club has done a very good job throughout the last 15 years doing replacing the players that really have an impact on the squad. Um, so if you want to look at Vinny, you want to look at Aguero, Silva, Yaya. I think all those players were eventually replaced in some form. Obviously, it's not like for like, but they do well to make sure that we're not left in the dust by someone leaving the club, even if they're a big part of our identity. And I think the same goes with Pep. They've brought in someone that understands what the club's ideologies are in terms of how we want to play, but also has the vision to make tweaks and to look at it differently. And I think maybe towards the end of Pep's tenure, it had gone stale a little bit, and he was struggling to find ways to bring that fire out of our players. And that's really my main expectation for just the players, Maresca and the board, is to reignite that fire, to see the hunger that Manchester City teams were known for throughout the last decade. It's when you go and play them, it's hell. It's the Sharks. We're gonna go make it a match every time. And I feel like the last 2 years that fear for the club has definitely diminished. I'm hoping to get that back. Um, so do we want to start with league or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So I mean, you guys were runners up last year. Is the
right.
expectation to? I mean, if you were runners up last year, the team's pretty much the same. You spent 100 some, or you're going to probably spend 200 million in the midfield. Is the expectation to go and win the league?
Yes, I think a league title should be the expectation. And that's not saying if Maresca doesn't win a league title, then he's a failure. But I think that should be maybe this is more going into the goals, but the expectation and the goals should be to win a league title or at least challenge for a league title. Not top four, but a league title. Um, we might be losing a player like Rodri, but then again, like what I was just saying, we are usually fine in replacing what that player brings to the squad. And I don't think it'll be one player. I don't think you can say Anderson is a like for like replacement for Rodri, but if you know how we're going to pivot the team, Anderson and whoever else is brought in or Nico G can fill that role, and we'll fill them in the aggregate. But yeah, we should be able to win a trophy. I think Arsenal will be a challenge again, but we've seen a lot of what I think propelled them last year be taken back by the league. So some of their tactics are going to need to be tweaked. It's going to be big tweaks. They're going to have to play a little more this season, and obviously picking up Bruno G is a great signing for them. But they're not without their faults. So we have the opportunity to go and take that title from them and turn the colors on the trophy blue again. It's been 2 years. Yeah, I think a league title should be the expectation for most City fans.
Yeah, whether that's fair or not for Maresca, the expectation is to win league titles. That's what Pep Guardiola set the standard for. So
I
we had that conversation at the end of last year when we were talking about what did we rank this year for City, because I think we came together for like a B plus. I was arguing an A because you guys won two trophies, but you were saying like it doesn't fucking matter if you're not
No.
winning the title.
And
Like
yeah, the only thing I want to correct about that is I don't think Pep established that. We were winning trophies before Pep. We were winning league. I mean, Pellegrini won a league title and
sorry, I
got
just mean
sacked.
like consistently winning.
Of
Like
course,
you guys
yeah.
won what, four off the trot? Was it four off the trot?
No.
Four in a row?
Oh yeah, we won 4 in a row, but not right off the bat.
No, because there was the year where it was like kind of a stopgap, and then you guys went back and forth with Liverpool a little bit, but then you guys won four straight, and then the last 2 years it's been
Liverpool and Arsenal.
yeah. So
Red.
Well, yeah, the expectation is league titles. I mean, it's which is crazy to say that even in a transitional year where you're losing the guy in
Mhm.
Pep, like it's still that. But I mean, I
I think
think
that
when
points a lot
United, it
to
was the same thing with
the
Ferguson.
establishment though of the organization is like this is what the organization is. We're not Pep FC. We're not one player. We're not Rodri FC. As much as it can look like that statistically, you want to look at Rodri's numbers and Pep's numbers in terms of their winning rate. Like it can look like that, but again, we were winning trophies before that, and
Sure.
I don't doubt that we're gonna win trophies after that. It just might not be as dominant. But then again, that's also unfair to Maresca to say that we haven't really seen anything. Um, so yeah, I'm looking forward to see what he can bring, but I totally expect him to challenge for a league title.
I was gonna say he was your ex manager. What in terms of you saw him kind of build with Chelsea?
I mean, just to kind of piggyback off Mila and what he was saying, we keep talking about infrastructure. We need to build something at our
Right.
clubs. This is the result and end product of what City have built.
That's a
Obviously,
good point.
Pep playing a huge part in that, but you look at the academy, the players that come through, the type of players that come through. And that's a huge part. That's a reason that it's not Pep FC, it's not Rodri FC. So, yeah, I think regardless of it being transitional, you still have a lot of cogs still there, and you have a guy who's familiar with what Man City are trying to do. And I think we'll probably go a little more into it in a second. But regardless of it being one of the best coaches of all time leaving, that feeling of a refresh of something new, it is going to light a fire under maybe certain players, and it might bring the best out of better players just because of the circumstances. So, yeah, I think a fair expectation to maintain those standards would be league title.
I'm gonna throw it straight back to you here because we talked about the Premier League, and obviously all of us are in the goal. If we were gonna put it for the Premier League, is to win the damn thing, right? Like if that's City, if you're a City fan, you're a part of their board. Like that's what you're saying. Go win a league title. But one of the other main things that you guys didn't get over the hump for a long time was the Champions League, and then you got over that hump and have been favorites ever since, but still have kind of faltered in maybe the last bits, right? When you go up against a Madrid or whatever it's been, there's been a roadblock there. But you guys have been able to fall back into the league. What's, in your opinion, for City and Maresca, right? Who had, got Chelsea to a Champions League. What should be his expectation, or what is the expectation for City in the Champions League this season?
I think the minimum would be improving on recent positions and exits in the Champions League. Obviously, drawing Madrid every year doesn't help, regardless of the position that they're in. It's still Real Madrid. That's never easy over two legs. And Maresca, in particular, I think is a very good knockout manager. I think all the overthinking stuff that we talk about with Pep, I think it's the opposite with Maresca. He researches every team, watches their full 90s, and especially in these big games, perfectly maps out the weakness in the opponent and how they can expose it. We saw, I think, his magnum opus so far in his young managerial career was that PSG game where they exploited those small holes in a PSG side that looked unbeatable. So I don't think an expectation is, oh yeah, we expect to win a Champions League, but I think dark horse might be a bit rich considering the capabilities of Man City, but I think they might sneak up on teams if we want to frame it that way. I think they might shock a few people in that sense and go a little further than expected. And you never know how things line up. You just need to get hot when it comes to the knockout competition.
True. Or do you think it's the same thing? Like, is it just improve on where you guys have gotten in the last few years, or is it similar to the?
Um, I think in terms of where we finish in the Champions League, it comes down to matchups. Some of them have been unfortunate, and we've definitely not shown up to a lot of these matches. But for me personally, I would prefer to see us dominate in the league phase. I think since we've seen this new what's the word?
Format?
Format. Yeah. The new format, like we've struggled a little bit. We were in the playoffs 2 years ago, and then you saw us drop points to, I'm blanking on the team name. I've blocked them out of my mind.
Bodo
Bodo
Glimt?
Glimt.
Bodo Glimt. We dropped points to Bodo Glimt, and obviously it's tough to travel to a place like that and play, but they hadn't played much. So complacency like that and just not looking up for the occasion is something I don't want to see at all, especially for players playing under a new manager and a new manager trying to live up to the hype of the club. So that should be the main thing for me. I'm not as much worried about our ability to go far in the tournament. I think we will go far, but I would like us to not have to squeeze our way through. I want to be one of the teams on top of the league phase. Um, if we can be undefeated, that's great. I don't think we need to be dropping meaningless games and getting comfortable just because we have the opportunity to drop points and still make it through. Doesn't mean we should.
Yeah, and I mean, my expectation in terms of where I am seeing City go in the Champions League is kind of similar, and it bleeds into kind of the third thing, which is just Maresca in general. But it's you guys used to impose your will in the Champions League on other teams, where it was like if a team was beating you, it was strictly because they were just lucky on the day or they were counterattacking on the day and just worked out. But I feel like in this one in particular, teams found a way to beat you guys, and then the mentality would just drop a little bit. And I think that with a new manager and Haaland playing as well as he's played throughout the summer and into this season, like there's a point to prove that one Champions League is probably not the standard for City anymore with the amount of money put in and all that stuff and the dominance over this stretch. Now you'd have to assume that the next step is imposing your will again on the rest of the world, right? All the rest of the clubs. Can you get into that echelons again of where Bayern and PSG are? Like everyone is chasing PSG, but why shouldn't City be in that conversation?
I completely agree, but I think it's for that reason that PSG go into these Champions League matches and they absolutely dominate the best teams.
Right.
Whereas you've seen with City in recent years, we go against the best teams and we don't look like ourselves. I think a change in style is definitely what was needed in terms of that. I think people have figured out how to deal with our style, and now it's about changing that and becoming more dominant, more explosive. We could talk about that a little more when it comes to the manager expectations, but yeah, I think imposing our will is definitely something I'm expecting to see, not only in the Champions League, in the Premier League, in the cups, the domestic cups. I think getting City back to that dominant style rather than passive side to side is one of the main goals.
So we're coming to the conclusion that the goal for Manchester City and Enzo Maresca is to improve upon their Champions League situation from the season prior.
Seasons.
Absolutely.
Plural.
And yeah, mainly that freshness of having a new manager, specifically a guy who loves to hyper focus and put together a game plan for a specific opponent. I think he has better tools than he had at his previous job. As much as that sucks to really say, it's true. He loves touchline wingers. He loves those attackers in the half spaces. He loves inverting a fullback. I think the profiles at Man City suit what he wants to do much more. So it can evolve those thoughts, those ideas that he had at Chelsea. the thoughts and ideas he had at Chelsea, it felt so rigid because it was this group of undisciplined players that it took time to implement what they were doing. It was such a drastic shift compared to what they were doing under Pochettino versus a Pep system to a Maresca system. Well, Maresca's largely influenced by Pep.
Yep.
So that, along with that fresh attitude, not to say it's better than Pep, but it's new. And a lot of players that are new. So I think it's good timing.
And I think we can just transition into expectations for him because going into that part of it also, I think a lot of our players have been coached by Maresca before, whether it be as an assistant or as an EDS, a youth development player coach. So familiarity with not only the system but with the personnel is huge when it comes to him. So I don't know. I feel like the groundwork's there. So what we were saying for Chelsea, I don't know so much as apply to City, and kind of the same with Carrick, where he has less to do in terms of building a foundation, a platform that comes with the team and the organization, and it's more so about making his mark on the team and changing the way we have been going, because we've always liked attacking football. But again, towards the end of his tenure, Pep's style went stale. Playing through the middle, we didn't have the personnel for it. The people that we had prior definitely excelled in that. So looking just at his tactics, the big thing is that the wing play is a big part of what we're going to be seeing. That I feel like has been lost for some time at City in just focusing on play through the wingers. You can even maybe say Sane and Sterling was the last time we had that. After that, a lot of our wingers were more so inside forwards or just inside operating players that were stationed out on the wings. Whereas now we're looking at these guys are getting high and wide, making chances for Haaland. So I'm just expecting him to really make his mark with that style of football for the squad and show that it's not just Pep 2.0. It's going to be a new identity for the club, and that these guys have something to work for and to work towards.
I'm a lot less worried about the tactics, and I think if you were to have a concern with Maresca, it would be being able to handle the job. Not to say he doesn't know how to handle a big club, but we know that he's tactically very capable. It's just, is he going to be able to, as soon as they hit their first draw, they drop their first points against a team they're not supposed to drop points against? Is it going to get to him? Is he going to maybe start? Is that going to affect him in a way that it didn't affect him at his previous job? That's really the only question I would have, and I'm not doubting it. That's just the only real question. I'm a lot more worried about that side of things than the tactics side of things.
Yeah, so we talked about the expectation for him is to potentially win a league title in his first season at a new club after he just left a club in January, right? So that's a difficult thing. And I don't know, personally for me, I think that in terms of his progression as a manager, he went from winning it with Leicester to coming into a Chelsea job and catapulting you guys back to Champions League and all that stuff. So then I feel like the next progression for him as a manager is just making his claim as a top, 3 or 4 manager in the league, right? If Arteta is probably the number 1 manager at this current point, just based off of the lack of people at this point, I feel like Maresca at this point in his progression, I would say he's further along his managerial progression than like a guy like Carrick. Or even a guy like Areola. Like, that's the step up for him. He's already been at the big 6 clubs. So now that next step is challenging Arteta and saying, like, tactically and all this stuff, like, I am 1A, 1B type of stuff.
Yeah, and I think for all the reasons that we just talked about, like, he has less pressure to go and do that stuff. And it's a more just focusing on, you're going to get backlash because you're taking over from Pep, and, like, can you deal with that? I think he can. I'm not really too worried about that. I think he knows and he's established that he is different from Pep. He's not going to be Pep. No one is Pep. So I'm not really worried about the outside of football stuff. I think a lot of that came down to instability amongst Chelsea as a club, and that's not even taking a dig at them. I think that's just clear and obvious facts. But yeah, I don't see the same issues arising at City. It's going to be more making use of the players he does have. Maybe the big thing that I've seen complaints wise for him is that side to side passing does become a thing at times. Then again, we just talked about personnel being different and having more options to work with. But yeah, I think just main expectation, get the most out of our wingers. These guys that have been lacking for output, I'd say, outside of Semenyo. Who looks refreshed and revived and ready to go again.
So, I mean, with that in mind, and the last being the expectations for the players, is there a single player that you're looking at this season? I mean, is it the obvious choice, or is there someone kind of in the weeds that you're like...
I think obvious choices, expectation-wise, is Haaland. You want to see him at the top of the goal-scoring charts, and I think expectations for Foden are big to get back to that level. Other than that, I think you can really take your pick. If you're a City fan or even just a fan of some of these players on their own, like Nico G can have some really big expectations this year, depending on how the market goes. I think Guardiola can have some pretty big expectations coming back from an injury and just the impact he had prior to that. Semenyo even.
To prove that he's not just this, like, just gun for hire?
Not even that. I think people have pointed out that it's never been like, oh, right away you know Semenyo's the guy, but he works towards his vision of what he wants to be and what he can be. And like already I've seen just in preseason and some of the clips he's posted, he looks way more technical than he did at the end of last season, and that was one of the big issues for us in bigger games, is that his technical ability was letting him down. It's not that he's a bad player, but that he, in bigger games like a Real Madrid and the pressure's higher, like his touch is not smooth enough to get us out of tight spaces. I'm hoping a style change like the one we've seen lets him flourish more, and that just the work he's put in can take him a little further in what he is as a Man City winger. So I think a lot of my expectations are for Semenyo, in just the fact that I've been saying, like, I'm not trying to replace him at right wing. I think he is our primary right winger. I would just like a different profile. But if he's able to become that profile, become this tight dribbler on the touchline and beating guys left and right, putting in balls for Haaland, then we don't really need to go pick up anyone. We have winger depth, but he just needs to be able to offer a more well-rounded game for me to say that he's like the nailed-on starter, and that's kind of my expectation, is especially if we don't go and get a right winger. If we decide to go more in like an attacking mid with the ability to play right winger direction, then Semenyo has to be the guy with the most expectations, I think.
Who would you say, Grant, if you had to pick one player from City that you're like the expectation needs to be to improve or just be the guy, and obviously a transitional year for them?
In a similar sentiment to the Chelsea portion, I'd go Foden, just because of we know what he's capable of. And I think even more so in this instance, because who was the guy that took you there the last time you won it, right? That level that he was playing at was absurd. So, especially in this transitional, wide open year, anybody can win it. If he gets 80% to where he was that year, you'd like your chances, I assume. So, a player like that, and again, especially with how Maresca plays, we're just talking about Semenyo, and he loves funneling 1v1 opportunities to his wingers, and I think Doku will flourish there. Semenyo, if he continues to improve, he will flourish. Those guys in the pockets, Foden, Cherki, so on, because Cherki is as much of a joy as he is to watch when he's on his game, how almost unstoppable he might be. There's times where it doesn't come off. But Foden, that's a guy who we can expect consistent performances from to be able to carry that on his shoulders and continue throughout a full season. I'm not going to come on here and be like, oh, it's his last chance. If it's not this year, it's done.
I mean,
he
a
just
lot of
signed a new
people are saying that
he
is the
just
thing.
signed a new contract, and
yeah,
I think that new contract gives him that
Of course,
renewed
that
confidence, and to prove
confidence,
himself.
yes.
He's going to prove himself to the new manager, who again he's probably played with before and he knows. So, I think he's being set up here for success, and I think he will get back to those levels. Maybe not all the way back, but I
mean,
think I think he'll have a big year.
It's a big turning point in his career. He's had 2 bad seasons after coming off a Player of the Season award in the Premier League. He's only known Pep as a coach his entire professional career. So this is a refresh for him, not let alone City fans who have been watching this guy for the past 10 years, but now Phil Foden, one of our best players, has a full refresh on life at City, and like you were saying with that contract, like that gives you confidence and stability in your job. And
you don't have to overextend to try. Oh, I
Exactly.
gotta prove myself, or else they might. And then you start doing too much. And I think Maresca's in a similar situation too, like we were talking about a little earlier, where a certain coach might feel like they really need to prove themselves at this level. I don't think he's in
Maresca
that.
doesn't.
And I
They
don't
already
think
know what he's
Foden is
capable of. It's the
Exactly,
same
so
thing.
It's comfortable. It's not to say your expectations there are none, but you're not stressed. It's not like, man, if it doesn't come off this year, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
I don't think you're there.
Your ass isn't on the line, but there are expectations,
Of course.
and
Healthy.
yeah, and
It's healthy.
I think they've done everything to support Foden, and he's responded to that by taking up a leadership role and saying he needs to be more of a leader in this locker room. He's been here the longest out of any of our players. I think that indicates a change in mentality. So you see the guy our age that was struggling with the limelight a little bit, like tried to get away from all the noise and stuff, and now it looks like he's taking it by the scruff of the neck and saying, all right, I can do this. This is what the club needs. And honestly, that's what makes him one of people's favorite players for City, is that he cares about the club, and he knows that if we're going to do anything, he has to change. So yeah, obviously expectations are huge for him, but I also don't want to put that on him, because he knows what he
If
brings.
anyone,
Yeah.
the biggest load on their shoulders is obviously Haaland. I mean, what, at a bare minimum, we expect 40 goals in all competitions. So like that, the fact
Yeah.
that is the baseline.
That's
like,
the expectation
that is
for him.
Minimum 40 goals all comps. Like it's nuts. So
And yeah, to be healthy and firing.
I
like
think
that.
we do just need to acknowledge that. Yes, we almost could have not even talked about it, but that is the level of player we are talking about.
ridiculous.
Where that is the bare minimum expectation. Even if he gets 50, it's like, okay, it depends. That's the level of player we're talking about. So obviously we could say him, but we still need to just understand how ridiculous that is.
Yeah, to wrap up this one, the guy that I'm not going to let sneak by it, because we did it with Morgan Rogers, is Anderson, right? Like, he's going to be, time of recording, I'm assuming that Rodri is gone. And so the hole that is going to be left is going to be in part by the second highest British transfer ever, which is Elliot Anderson. And he, I mean, this is the jump, right? When Newcastle, then he got food chained and, Forest got him.
PSR to Nottingham Forest.
Right? And then he is now taking that leap, and we saw it in England. Like, he is that level, and so now he's going to have to fill the role of maybe the greatest DM the league has ever seen.
See, that's the interesting conversation, but I think we need to wait until after the window shuts for that conversation, because I think he might play 6.
I don't think he's
even if
playing
it's
the
not-
6. I think he's. People have to remember, and we talk about it plenty on our podcast, that Rodri's one of a kind midfielder. He's one of the only players that can play in a lone 6. We're not going to be playing a lone 6 anymore, especially with Maresca.
No.
Like, it's going to be Anderson and whoever's playing the right back. So it could be a Victor Reis if we're having them step into midfield. It could be a Rico Lewis. It could be on the other side Nico O'Reilly, Guardiola. Like, any of these guys could be helping him there. So it's a different role to. I don't like the idea that he's replacing Rodri, because like we said, there's really no replacing that.
But from a sporting directive, he is, because he's the guy that you're. Because even if you're thinking like Rodri was going to stay
he's
in
the
that
centerpiece
year,
of the new aggregate.
Yeah.
Right,
but
right.
we're getting 2-3 players to replace what Rodri
of
brings.
course you
We're
can't
not,
replace Rodri. But in terms of what the media is going to expect from him,
He's the
English.
star.
I'm just
right. Like that's the expectation, is that he's coming in to either fill the Rodri role in a year from now, or the idea of Rodri. Like that's how
We
it's going
expect
to
him to
proceed.
play the most minutes in the
I
pivot.
don't think that. He's filling Bernardo Silva's role.
I just think what Dylan's saying is like maybe he's meant to play the
just
most
looks
minutes
like
in
that.
that double pivot.
It's just
like,
the
he's
perception of
main
it. Like,
midfield
of course.
replacement.
The
it costs
replacement for
120,
Rodri is going to be Buati if it ends up going through, and that's more of a long-term
He
thought
can invert
process.
from right
but
back.
exactly.
Yeah. There's
but like
options.
It's the same thing that we talked about with Caicedo or Rice or Enzo. Like when you come with that price tag, it just comes with that level of
this is
responsibility.
the thing, though. Prior to the World Cup, I had hesitations on him being able to shine in such a big spotlight like that, especially with the price tag. But now that the price tag's not really a thing, thank you, Chelsea. And also, like, you just watched him during the World Cup, like, dominate midfields.
Yeah.
And he had a motor. And that's the thing. You watch his game and you see... I don't see Rodri whatsoever. Let's be honest.
No, it's not
I see
Rodri.
Bernardo. I see shades of KDB. And
Jordi Maradona.
he's going to be an 8 for us. He's going to be the guy that connects the midfield and gets the ball flying forward and through balls to Haaland, all that stuff, and getting stuck into tackles. That Anderson is Bernardo with a larger frame and more of a Premier League mentality built into him, just being in and around the Premier League for so long. But yeah, again, like, he is... It looks like he's the Rodri replacement, because a caliber player like Rodri leaving and the price tag you bring Anderson in, I think that's the easy comparison. And that's what most people will view him as. But I think you have to zoom out a little bit and see like what he's bringing to the team. He's going to bring hard running. He's going to bring physicality. He's going to bring a willingness to go forward. And a lot of those things is like what Rodri brought, but he's not going to have the positioning. He's not going to have the defensive IQ, the ability to just slow down the game. I don't see that coming from him. So that's why I think he's one half of what Rodri brings. The next player, like a Buati, is going to be a little more of a deep-lying playmaker in that sense, but also have the ability to get stuck in and have the legs to run. That's why also the Wharton links make sense to me. Next to him, like a Wharton and Anderson, that's Rodri. If you combine the two of them. So it's like, yeah.
The last real thing I had on the Anderson topic is there's a lot of variations of the shape that Maresca wants to get to. So whether that's a static double pivot and one of the fullbacks is, that 10 almost in possession, or it's one of them inverting into the pivot, and then a guy like Anderson is the type of guy where out of possession he can be in that double pivot. In possession, he's one of the 10s, right? He's in the pocket. Like, there are so many different ways to go about this, so that's kind of where I'm coming from, where the rebuilding in the aggregate for Rodri, on any given day, it'll be a different variation of the same shape to get to the same, like we were talking about earlier, the principles that he has. So I think Anderson's versatility and able to play multiple roles, because if he needed to be the 6, he can. Is that his best position? Probably not. It might be a little limiting for him.
It's one of
You're not
those
letting
where
him show all of his qualities.
Yeah.
But he can.
Very much like a Gundo player, where it's like if you need him to play the 6, he can. That is not your primary position for him, though.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I would probably prefer Nico G as the 6 if it were to be the two of them. He would be the more, deeper one. Same thing if Buwadi gets over the line. So there's so many options, and I think, yeah, the expectation should be high because, like you mentioned earlier, Enzo Fernandez, Caicedo, 100 million
Just comes with
guys,
the price tag.
Like, that expectation is there, but I don't think it's going to be too much of a worry. I don't think there's going to be too much of a spotlight in a negative sense when it comes to him. I think he'll be just fine.
I don't think so either. I think he's going to be just fine. He's brilliant. So we'll see. And I think that's where we're going to end this section, the expectations. The next segment that we will do is a little fun game called Premier League Wavelengths. We're going to sit here. We're going to say names. Hopefully we get it in a low amount, but we'll just have to wait and see.
We'll see.
We'll see.